We're going through multiple cultural shock waves right now, and I had considered focusing today really on the situation that we're dealing with Black Lives Matter, with George Floyd. I listen to protests outside my window walking by every night now, and they're very justified and essential. The voices need to be heard. I decided that we would proceed today with our discussion about virtual presentation. I'm planning on something, hopefully it's going to work out next week, that's going to focus more on using the virtual medium to get the word out about important issues. I just want to acknowledge it. I want you to know that we all know it's happening, and we're going to take a moment right now to think about something a little bit more specific to acting online. I want to also say that a lot of you are talking about solo performance, and I've said many times that solo performance is probably the best situated of the art forms, of the theater art forms for virtual presentation. That said, I want to talk about what we can do with virtual presentation as actors and as producers and directors who understand the needs of actors, so that we can have theater experiences that aren't necessarily just solo performances. We've very specifically talked about solo performance in the past. Today, I just want to think of the broad medium. I like to think of virtual presentation as a new medium, and I think it has its own requirements. Does one of my guests today want to actually jump in and start talking about what's changed for you as a performer and how you adapt to solo, virtual, isolated performance? That's the other thing. I want to make sure that we understand the distinction between virtual performance, which a lot of us have been doing for many, many years. We have the queen of Zoom here already. She's in the room. But now we're in a situation where it's not just virtual presentation, but it's virtual isolated presentation. So let's incorporate that into the conversation. And I see, Valerie, do you want to start off?
Okay. I have a solo show, but this is not about my show. I'm giving everyone tips on virtual performance that I have learned, and some of which I've learned from the people who are going to be talking as well. The first thing are these AirPods. Are wonderful for performers. Instead of just using the volume and speakers from your computer, these AirPods fit into your ears, and you have 100 feet of movement from your computer. So you don't have to be a talking head. I can move around up to 100 feet and be able to talk, and you'd be able to hear me, and I'd be able to hear. So this way, as a performer, you are not tied to the computer, because I've seen too many shows of talking heads, and it's so much more interesting if the actor has the freedom to move around. The other thing is that with going from stage to screen, it is a very different experience. So I would pick scenes, if you're doing things virtually or when you're doing your show, to do less is more. And I did 7 minutes recently of my material. It took me hours to do. So because it's a different choreography, and what really helped me is if you have a Mac, or I don't know if a PC has it, there's a application called Photo Booth, and you could turn it into video, and you can watch yourself doing it. So I was my own director, and I watched, and because you have to decide when you're going to look at the camera, when you're not going to look at the camera. When you do look at the camera, have the script on your computer right next to the green light on your computer, so it looks what, because I've seen so many people read their scripts like this: "Hi, I'm Valerie, it's raining. Hi, I'm Valerie, it's raining." And it's very distracting. So there's a lot of tips and a lot of mistakes I made that I've learned. The other thing with Zoom, if you're using Zoom, don't scream or yell loud. If you have an intense moment, use your voice of intensity, not in volume. And I'm going to put on the chat a video called Zumba that this man, Don Reed, did about all of these great tips on how to use Zoom. It's also very important to pay attention to your hair and makeup on screen. I tend to use muted colors if, you know, and pay attention as if you were doing this for real on stage, the costume, everything. The other thing, if you're not near your router, which I'm actually going to get an Ethernet cable to plug into my computer because my performance space is in another room and it's farther from my router. Keep the doors open and try to keep the space open so your router can fully engage in your performance instead of getting sometimes that message your internet is unstable. The other thing is, you know, just to try to have a tech rehearsal with someone, hire someone to help you with your tech and to host your show. And you know, and now that we're also looking further with our shows, we can maybe do talkbacks as well for our Zoom shows. Do think outside the box and not just perform.
I basically want to, I want to get I want to have an introduction to each one of you first. So, and then we'll go back and have more detailed conversations. Okay. So let's introduce Talisa Friedman. And Talisa, tell us about your background with Zoom and what you've done. And then we'll get specifics. Valerie, everything you said is absolutely on target. And I'm sure that we'll get into more of it.
So I did probably in the first or second week of quarantine. It was pretty early on. We did a reading of this play, The Way Out. It's a 6-person cast, and we were very nervous about losing the intimacy of the piece. It's about 6 hippies in a barn, and having that translate over Zoom. But we'd all worked on readings or performances of it in the past, so we already had that personal connection as actors. And the biggest thing we had to workshop was cutting all of the overlapping lines, because there's a lot of overlaps. It's very naturalistic dialogue, and on Zoom, if someone speaks, then your audio cuts out, so you lose a lot of the dialogue. So we had to basically rewrite every piece of overlapping dialogue to fit the performance. But that and eye contact is the hardest thing, because what you see in terms of the layout of people is different from what everybody else sees. So I might think I'm looking at somebody to the side of my screen, but somebody else sees it the other way. So we just ended up having to go with it, because it was more important for us to connect with the other actors than to have that accuracy, I think.
And what I want to say also is that it's one of the big problems with Zoom, and there's one platform that you can do it, which is you can't organize the frames. You can't put them where you want them to be. It doesn't always happen the way you want it to be. A lot can be done in post-production. And if anybody's thinking about having seen like the Sondheim presentation where someone in a tree, they were looking at each other and they were looking in the right direction, that's post-production. When we're doing Zoom and most of the other platforms as well, we don't have any control of where the frame is going to be. What helps, and I'm going to say this, I think everybody knows it by now, only the actors should have their video and audio on. Nobody else in the room should have video and audio on, including the narrator, including the stage directions. Probably that stage direction should be in the dark. Actors will make their entrances by turning on their video, make their exits by turning off their video. There's a setting that we all have to put on our screen, which is hide non-video participants. So if you hide non-video participants, then only the people that are on video will be visible to you. So you will at least have some control over who is visible in the room. So I just wanted to because the complicated things, what you're talking about is a 6-character play. A solo piece, there's a lot we can talk about with a solo piece. With a 6-character play, the problems are multiplied.
Yes, they definitely are. One also thing for scripts, what we did that worked really well is we made the Zoom half of our screen and the script, the PDF, half the screen, so that we didn't have to look down. We were looking straight ahead. And that worked really well.
How did you do that?
You can adjust the size of your Zoom so that it's just half the screen of your computer. And then you can also adjust the size of your PDF so that they kind of split the screen.
But it's not advisable to do it on a phone, though. It's probably better to do it on a laptop.
Oh yeah, we all use laptops.
So that's another rule that we need to establish at the beginning, the difficulty of doing this if you're only using a phone. It can be done, but it involves other problems. Does anybody want to jump? Oh, Andy Lachman, come on in and talk to us.
Hi, everybody.
Come back to
I'm
you.
involved in several projects right now. Most of what I've done on Zoom is rehearsals, musical improv, dramatic improv. I'm also involved in this what started off as an off-Broadway musical called Life Insurance, but that's just rehearsing online. But to really, the biggest thing now is I've done a lot of self-taping, so I was pretty familiar with switching from theater to screen. But the biggest thing now is you're not only an actor, you're a cinematographer, you're a lighting director, you're a wardrobe person, you're a set designer, you're a sound person. All these things you have to learn. And some of them, like lighting, that's a pretty extensive thing. It's an art unto itself. So that's really the biggest change to answer the question that you had asked.
Okay.
But it's just a new challenge, and there's so much change going on as you've been discussing in these sessions throughout the past several weeks. Nothing is static. It's just changing so rapidly, and it's all experimentation. No one really knows where this is going.
Hopefully we're learning enough so that we can get better and better at the presentations. Better and better means we're able to do these virtual isolated performances in a way that is more engaging, or as engaging as possible for the audience.
Right. And the big question that I always have is, as was it Valerie pointed out, that the difference between theater and screen is pretty intense, because one, you're in a big distance, one, you're at a small distance, and the camera is very intimate. So when you're doing theater, what are you doing? Are you performing for screen, which is not as dramatic and visual and gesturing and loudness, or do you basically put into place the things that you've been taught in dealing with screen, which is the character comes from your eyes and you take that life force out of you and project it on. It's almost telepathic in a way. Is that what we should be doing when we're reproducing a theater? It's a big question, and I'm not sure what the answer is, and sometimes I have a question when now that self-taping is coming around for theater as well. What do I do in that self-tape? Do I project myself for what I know I need to do for screen, or do I do what I know what I normally do in theater? That's a big question that I have not resolved yet.
We're going to ask
Sorry?
one question to the others. I want to bring Inger into the conversation now. And can you you probably have other things you want to say, Inger, but let's start with what Andy's saying. How do you temper your acting technique so that it works virtually? How much theater is it and how much film is it?
That's an interesting question. I don't think I do temper it. I think what acting wise, I think it's still theater, but I think what you have to be really cognizant of is the box that you have to do it in. And you do have to, I mean, he's very right, it is in your eyes, but there's a lot, because you are, as Valerie mentioned, in many ways a talking head for most things. It does need to be in here, but I think in some ways it needs to be more than it would be for film. It needs to be theater, because otherwise all you get is like the talking head. Whereas if it is in here, if it's in your shoulder, if it's in your body, it comes through in your eyes and it comes through in your voice.
Interesting. Tell us what your experiences have been with virtual presentations in the past couple of months.
As I mentioned at the beginning, I've probably done, I don't know, 10 to 12 readings in the last 2 months. A couple of them were actually, one of them was actually taped, as you mentioned, and then edited at the end because it's going to be part of a playwrights festival on the 16th of June. The one I did most recently, we had a cast of, I believe, about 9 to 10 actors. And as Talisa mentioned, that was really a challenge. One of the things, so there are a couple of things, I agree with everything everyone has said. One of the things that we did, instead of splitting the screen in half this way, we did the bar of the gallery across the top. So that was maybe a third of your screen. And then the bottom 2/3 was the script. So if you're looking at the script, and I apologize because right now I'm on my phone, so I can't demonstrate because my connection wasn't great on the computer. But when you're on the computer, if you're looking at the script, it's right below the green dot that is your camera. So you can look up so that you're actually looking into the camera when you're looking at the other actors. And we definitely found that that was more helpful because then it gave the feeling like you were actually talking to the person, regardless of where they were on the Zoom screen.
Okay. Let me bring Sharlene in to add anything you'd like to the conversation. Sharlene?
Hi. Well, I can't speak to the placement of the boxes on the computer because I've always used my my iPhone. I use my iPhone as the camera. I engage with the actors, and then I have my whole script, my PDF, and I've highlighted all my lines, and I even put it on a cushion. So it's up higher because the thing that has bothered me the most, and I've done, I'd say, maybe 10 to 15 readings since this has happened, but you know, not all full-length plays, a lot of short little plays. The thing that has really bothered me, and I've noticed with other actors, is they're like this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, will you friggin' look at me for Pete's sake? I mean, why can't they practice? You take your phone, you put it on selfie mode, and you sit in a chair and you practice. You practice how you're presenting. You're practicing where you want things to go, where, you know, but the people that are just using their computer, I find it, and people say, oh, you should use your computer. Well, my computer doesn't have a good camera. So everybody, that's another thing. I think there are no absolute rules. I think everybody's got to come up with a recipe that works for them. And that's what's so wonderful about this. I mean, sure, I mean, the fellas said that, oh, now we have to be technical directors and all this kind of stuff, but that's the beauty of it all. We can get the lighting we want. We're not beholden to somebody. And I say, oh, I don't think that's going to look so good if you light me from under there. You are the master of your own ship. And so therefore, you know, every week I try and get a little bit better at this. I mean, and I think most of you are probably much better than I am because I haven't even used the computer for this. All I know is that the iPhone and the computer, and I just glance down and it works great for me. And if it says it, and then she exits, I go off screen. Or I turn my stop video on and I have props to my side and I try and you know, but as to what you were saying, the woman that's looking at me now, that just spoke,
Mm-hmm.
what you said, I ask the playwright, I say, I tend to be pretty big anyway. So how do you want me to temper this? Because now your play is on a screen. Do you want me to tone it down or do you want me to do it as I would in a room with you? And they said, just do it. Do it, but a lot of these people know me. So they say, just do it as yourself. Do not hold back. And, you know, I figure, okay, if I go too big, they'll tell me, they say next week, you know, tone it down a little bit. Okay. But I found it a lot of fun.
I want to bring in Rhonda, because Rhonda actually did a whole presentation on this yesterday, didn't you, Rhonda? Rhonda?
Okay, yes, there we go.
There.
Yeah, and is it possible, Bob, that you can share, give me the ability to share my screen?
Sandy, do you know if I can do that?
I can do that for you. Hang on just a moment.
Because I want to show a picture
You should
of.
be able to share it now. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Share content. Let's screen. Oh, that is how to do that. Okay. Everything. Yes. Okay.
Your computer
Screen.
and you go into share. It'll give you the whole page of everything that's on your computer that it can see, and you click on what it is.
Okay, because I'm trying to get a picture up that I have. Let's see if I may not be able to do it. Sorry. Okay, share. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, because I cannot sort that out, let me show you. Let's see if I can hold it up. There is my setup that I did for my solo show. And one of the things that we did, okay, to address a couple of things. Number one, we really looked at, in terms of theater, of doing something that was sort of in between theater and in between film. Because if you're taking a show that you know really well in your body and you are putting it, as somebody has just said, into that box, into the frame, you have to make adjustments, which is why I don't know if you can see it on there. All along my wall are a bunch of Post-it notes. And what I needed to do was rehearse in intense ways, because you just don't have the latitude that you have on when you're on stage. And so, you know, when you might do something like that on stage, that's not going to read on screen. So I had literally Post-it notes everywhere, and what I had to do was rehearse, remembering to look at which Post-it note in which moment. And I sometimes put names on them of different characters that I was doing. The other thing I want to say is what we did, we put the camera up and tilted it down, because one of the things that you can do, and I say we, it was me and my director, Gareth Hendy, who was not here with me. He was, we rehearsed on Zoom, and that really allowed for us to use depth. So we had, there's one, I'm kind of like a bright blur. There's one level of depth, but then here was another level of depth. So I got right up into the camera. And then I also was able to use the floor in the back of the space. And that was really, it was a lot of rehearsal, I have to say. Working on the 15-minute piece of my show that I presented, I want to say with my director, that was about a 4-hour rehearsal just to translate everything and get it into the frame. And then I probably did, I don't know, 4 or 5 more hours of rehearsal on my own, just dealing with setting up the space and the lighting and just making sure everything was right, including my own muscle memory.
I think Inger wants to respond to something.
Yeah.
That's...
What the last 2 people have said regarding rehearsing, and I just wanted to make sure people know this. So on my phone and on my computer, I have the Zoom app, And what I've done for certain things is I'll go into the app and just start a meeting, which is just me, but then I get to see what it's going to look like in Zoom. So you can see what lighting you need. You can see where you need to be on the wall. You can see where your eye lines need to be. And it's better, I think, than when you just use your camera function and flip it around, because sometimes that is a better quality than what Zoom would be. So if you actually go into Zoom and just do a meeting with yourself, you will see what it's actually going to look like on Zoom.
Julie, did you want to add anything or introduce yourself?
Yes, sure. Yes, again, I'm Julie McNamara. I'm an actor and singer, and I also have had a special foray into Zoom fun because I'm also a yoga teacher, and teaching on Zoom is challenging because you have to show your whole body for yoga. Like if you're doing a sun salutation, you had to figure out, how do I get seen? And I totally second that, Inger. I think I discovered that trick of like putting on the Zoom meeting, because then you can see how you're going to be perceived. I usually do that before a class. And I would add, and I love what Rhonda said about the specific spaces, because I think a lot of it goes back to the basics of self-taping. Like most actors, as Andy was saying, like have experienced self-taping at some point in their lives. And right now, I think you have to think of just about everything as setting up for a self-tape. And something that's really struck me is self-taping can now and then, it's really exciting, but I've always found it like slightly stressful as well. Just if you're a type A perfectionist like me and you're like, oh, I can obsess and do a million takes, and you have to limit your takes, you have to calm your mind. But also I think right now is beautiful because people understand that we're all in a tight spot, and you know, I'm not self-taping for dream Broadway shows or anything of that sort, because at the moment they are not casting. So I find, all right, if I'm terrified to tape something for class, you know, for my virtual class, this is a really good opportunity to play with it. And I think it's, every actor should just go back to like everything we know about self-taping and keep playing with it. And I second what everyone said about rehearsing it. And one more thing I will add, one thing my acting teacher has taught us that kind of blew my mind is just as we often talk about how live auditioning, there's no one right way, like actors are allowed to take risks and do different things. I think in self-taping, you have to extend your creativity as an artist. Like, yes, we can only show so much of our body, but you know, who's to say, like, if I kind of hide in the frame, I look a little different. If I'm like right up in your face, if I'm holding back, I'm teaching children's yoga as well. And like the only way you activate the kids is by moving around. So I think we can bring our creativity as artists into the Zoom frame as well, because we're creative.
We have a lot of raised hands. I'm going to get to them in a second. I wanted to clarify terms with everybody. Somebody's asking whether you're referring to performances or readings. I'm assuming that in a virtual presentation, there goes my phone. In a virtual isolated performance, we're talking about readings, because nobody's really doing a rehearsed, staged performance with a set and costumes. So I just want to make sure, unless somebody is doing something that you consider more of a performance. I guess a one-person show can be a performance.
Yes, Bob, it's Rhonda and myself and Valerie. We both did our solo show on Zoom.
Right, and I wanted to chime in with, I wanted to show a picture, and I don't know if you could see it. I'm pigging back on what Rhonda said. This was masking tape. I actually blocked the entire scene on the floor with masking tape, because you have to know exactly where you're going to be standing and exactly where you're going to be at all times. I did stage left. I did stage right. Here were the props that I used. Very simple. A chair, you know, a teddy bear and a tiara. And to also piggyback on, you know, and I put the Don Reed Zoom tips, you know, you could talk like this. Oh my gosh, I have a secret, you know, or, oh, go back and everything. So I agree with everyone, and especially with what Rhonda said about rehearsing. She did 15 minutes. I did 7 minutes. It took hours to choreograph it. And the sight lines, I put the computer up a little bit higher for a sight line. So I just wanted to add that. Okay,
I guess let's get into the raised hands. Andy, you get priority because you're one of the guest speakers, and then we'll go to Gloria. Andy? What do you add?
No, I was just going to tack on to what was said, and I know Julie brought it up. Hi, Julie. That the beauty here is you have editing, whereas in theater you don't, and your lines have to be perfect, and everything has to be perfect on the, more or less in the theater. It's not that nothing doesn't go wrong when you're on stage, but here with using a camera, unless you're doing it live, you have the ability to do multiple takes to get it right, or to and to splice in if you're capable of editing, which is something that I had to learn. So it just brings another nuance into being an actor. It's not just being an actor anymore. It's being all these other things that you need to do to make your performance come alive.
Okay, I have questions I'm going to ask later, but I want to get back to the raised hands. Sam Simon, raise your hand again because I accidentally unraised it. I didn't mean to. But I want to go to Gloria Rosen first. There you are.
Okay.
What?
All right, thanks. Just quickly, both for Rhonda, because now I have you on speaker view, so I have a whole page. Could I see that's the setup that you had that you showed us a second ago with the lighting?
Yeah, and I of course know you, so I can email you the picture. And I used the overhead lighting, a ring light. There was another light above my camera, and then another light along the wall that makes that big splotch along the wall. So there was a fair amount of lighting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did not have the ring light on high. So, but lots of illumination.
And by the way,
and Valerie, I'm just curious, Valerie, where were you? Were you at home? Was that that set? Is that where you're, or is that?
Yeah, I'm in my living room, but I have an empty room right now. And I've been using that. And the other thing too, and I don't want this just to be about solo shows, and I'm going to do this with Rhonda. You can do a lot of fun things. Rhonda, can you grab this piece of paper for me? Can you take it? Thank you. So you can do stuff like that on Zoom, which is so much fun. I was in a reading of the Ritz, and there was a gun that the guy had, and he's like, I need to give you the gun. So I borrowed a water gun from my neighbor. So he gives me a gun, and I come up with the water gun going, I'm going to kill myself. So, you can do a lot of fun things. You could pass a teacup, a piece of paper. So there's so many fun things. And what I want to tell you about Zoom, and everyone, don't be down about it. What we're doing right now, we're like little kids, and we're using all the props we have at home. A scarf, a deck of cards, turning something into a prop, a water gun, so have fun with it. We're almost going back to being children again, where we opened up a little chest of all these little props we had, making, pillows, making a fort when we're kids. This is exactly what we're doing now. And it's fun as hell. So I want you to know that. It's not a detriment. It's actually making your mind be way more creative than you ever thought you could be.
So let's go to Emma. Emma, then Sam, then Jeffrey. So Emma?
I have a couple questions. I think you might have said this, Valerie, but Rhonda, when you were talking about how long was your piece you were rehearsing that you rehearsed for 4 hours was one question. I'm also curious if you streamed live, and then if you recorded and edited that afterwards. And has anybody played at all? I have projections in my show, so I'm curious if anybody has played with how you do the projections as virtual backgrounds and change them out.
We've talked a lot about virtual backgrounds. We encourage the use of virtual backgrounds. The problem with virtual backgrounds is if you have a cast of 6 and one person doesn't have the capability of getting a virtual background, it kind of weakens the whole point of it. So it's something that a director and a writer needs to know up front when they're casting people, what the actors' capabilities are. I'm a big fan of virtual backgrounds, even if it's just a plain black background, so everybody looks like they're in a neutral space. It just gives a more of a feeling that the actors are all in the same, potentially in the same place. Rhonda, did you have the answer to the other question? How long was the piece?
Yeah. But Valerie and I both, for the Marsh stream, there's a theater in San Francisco called the Marsh, and we did our about a 15-minute cutting of each of our shows during Solo Arts Heals, which is actually something that we're working on, is solo shows that have a healing theme. So
and
we
Sam
did
did it too.
And Sam did it as well. Thank you. Yes. We did live stream it, and definitely I know the mistakes I made, like just not having the right setup right at the beginning. There was a moment that like something was not right, and I had to fix it as I was supposed to be starting, and voila, live theater.
Just to set up a rule with everybody who's speaking, we're all working on the assumptions that you're all talking about live streamed presentations, not things that have been gone into post-production and editing. If you're talking about an exception, let us know that something was done in post-production. Sam raised hand.
Yeah, yes, I did the Marsh stream too. I was one of the earlier ones.
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I did the Marsh stream too. I did an earlier one. I sat at my computer with a virtual background. It read more than I didn't move traditionally. But my question is about performance based and virtual backgrounds, and even if you don't use a virtual background. So I've got some opportunities, and the question is, should I try to rent a studio and simply perform it in the studio? Then I don't really feel like I have to cope with virtual background, or I just can't quite imagine a virtual background, which I can. I have a stage background that I use often. Some people have seen it when I sit there. It makes you almost feel like you're on stage. I just don't know how that plays when you move around a lot. And so I don't know, it's a question, and whether people have looked at renting studios to do this and being able to do your Zooming and video performances in small studio space, particularly now that a lot of things are opening.
So you were out, so I didn't hear. Was there actually a question you were asking?
Well, I'm asking for points of view about the use of studios, about renting small studios. So if I'm going to do a Zoom for an event or a Zoom of a solo show, I've got a lot of freedom. I don't need a lot of people. And I'm torn between trying to find a space in a home, using a virtual background, or looking at renting a black box or a studio space for my own singular, my role in it, and being so my one show, it's an hour, put it in the computer or camera up on a stand and performing and looking to do it in the studio. I'm just curious as to people's thoughts about it, but he's done it that way. Which way do you see going?
Sandy, you wanted to address that? No? Sandy Silverberg? Don't hear you.
Yeah, okay, I got it. What I want to say is, obviously it's tough to get out and rent a studio under the current circumstances. If you do have room in your space, it's perfectly fine. I would recommend, if you want to have that professional aspect to it, it is fairly inexpensive to get your own green screen setup. And that's important if you're going to be using virtual backgrounds, because if you're using the software only, you can get ghosting and you can disappear in the frame. They're generally available for less than $100, which includes a screen and a rack and lighting from places like B&H. So something to consider if you want to do a more professional version from your home.
And Sandy, does that literally mean something that's a green screen that you set up behind your chair when you're sitting in front of your computer?
Yes, exactly.
All right.
If somebody has links to buy them, please put them in the chat. Thank you.
And may I add, Bob, is that okay?
Yeah. Well, I just want, before I forget,
Yeah.
the other thing, a thing I want to say about equipment, because we haven't really been specific about it. All actors need to know that there is, this may be stating the obvious, but there may be some people who don't know. There is such a thing as an iPhone or a phone tripod. And the tripod is really, really one of the key pieces of equipment that an actor needs when they're doing this. I just want to make sure you all know that. And disagree with me, but I think that's true.
Ooh, could I say something?
Yeah.
Okay. But for those of you that don't have a tripod right now, because I have one, but I don't have it with me, I've used a music stand, and I've taken Velcro, and I have one of these little stands for my iPhone for like a desk, but I didn't have a big one with me. And I put the Velcro on the bottom of it, stuck it on a music stand, and then duct taped it there, and I can move it up and down as I work and back and forth, and you have a lot of flexibility with it. So you have to think outside the box. Just because it's not meant for an iPhone doesn't mean it can't accommodate one.
Can I add to that real quick?
Sure, but Jeffrey Siegel raised.
Not only the music stand reminded me of something. I've been in an environment where they projected from an iPad, that was a camera, and then and they muted the sound on the iPad so they get only the video, and that they used the iPhone, called into the same Zoom for the audio. And it worked amazingly close because the iPhone could be close to you. So maybe something to experiment with.
So Jeffrey Siegel, your hand is probably so tired by now. Jeffrey? Jeffrey?
Am I muted?
There you are. Okay.
Am I unmuted now?
Now you're unmuted.
Thank you. I said I haven't been doing these Zoom performances, but I have other background in film as well as theater. And while we're on the subject of actor performance style and this convergence with technology, I'm suggesting that now, for so long we were just worried about getting something up on the screen and being able to hear it. I think we're getting past that collectively to the point where we should think about how we're presenting it. And that can include not being bound to the technology built into your computer. An external microphone, a shotgun microphone, or something with a higher degree of sensitivity will let you be intimate at a distance and be heard and not have to shout at your camera and convey a different emotional tone. And then you don't have to get like that to be heard intimately, which blows your face up in a wide angle and changes again the tone of your performance, which leads to the other comment. You can get an external camera that's a longer lens that will bring you closer without having to get physically closer, but keep your face looking normal and not have to get up close to the screen like that. At one point when I was looking to do a 3-camera live capture of a project, I was looking at a multi-camera editing software to put on my Mac, which was available and was not expensive, that would let me bring in different sources that were not built into my Mac, whether they were audio or video, and have someone and either edit them myself or have someone running the Mac edit them on the fly. We're not always going to be in quarantine. And I just got my COVID test yesterday and I'm perfectly healthy. 2 people who are healthy with COVID tests can get in the room and do something together. We may be talking about solo performance, but you're not necessarily bound to doing every bit of tech work yourself. And maybe you should be forging those relationships with someone who can run more complex technical setups for you to enhance your performance.
Just want to make sure everybody's following the chat. David Lamberton just put in a number of useful resources that everybody might want to look into. And Sandy has given some information about green screens. So keep an eye on the chat.
Thanks, Bob.
Andy Lachman?
Yes, I do actually have some sets that show lighting and backdrops, and even it's a PDF. I can bring it up. It's on my desktop if you want to see it. But in the meantime, this is a lavalier mic. They were talking about mics. This is an omnidirectional mic, which is excellent. It clips on to you, and this plugs into your computer. If you want to need it, it can plug into your phone as well. This is very inexpensive, as are a lot of the other things. I have a complete setup now. I changed my lighting. I changed my backdrop. I can show it to you. I can show some of the things to you if you allow me to share my desktop if you want to.
I don't know how to allow you to share your desktop. I'm happy to do it.
I think I can just do it.
Okay,
There we go. Can everybody see that?
there you go.
So that basically, what that is, this is a 3-point lighting system. Now, these are more sophisticated lights it shows, but you can use any light. You can use the ring light that was shown earlier, and I'll show you some of those. You can use your own lamps using a compact fluorescent bulb. What I do is I use 4 points. This is your key light. This is your fill light to help shadowing. This light I use to appear on my head, and then I put one back here at a halo that lights the background. What that does, that separates me from my background. The next picture, hopefully I can show you here. Let's go. Where's my file now? I have to stop the share for a second and change the screen. Okay. The next photo I have is basically again, this is just another version of that. Can you all see that?
No.
Yes? No?
No.
Let me share again.
Well, while you're working on that, I just want to question that I was going to ask.
Sure.
All of my guests. Okay. I wanted to basically say, based on your experiences in virtual presentations, what is it you want what is it you want from a director, and is there anything you would want writers to know that will make your life easier? Because a lot of the people in the room are not necessarily actors. So from a director's point of view and from a writer's point of view, what do they need to know that would help you? Anybody? Okay, Andy.
Goes to my question earlier. Are we trying to do what we need to do for video and screen, which is create an intimate experience with the camera, which sometimes is your screen partner, or sometimes is the audience, which is usually the audience? Or do we find some kind of balance between what we do for theater? Because what we do in theater can look ridiculous. If I'm gesturing and doing all these things that I might do on stage, it can really look off-putting on camera. So how do we find that balance between what you're looking for in theater and what you're doing on screen? It's a big difference. Now, I understand what I have to do in each, but the question is, what do you want as director? And more importantly, what is going to look good to the audience? Because theater does not really look good on a small screen. That would be helpful to me. And then it carries through to doing a self-tape for a casting person.
Okay, Talisa, what did you want to add to that?
I was just going to say, and this goes for non-Zoom readings as well, but having the stage directions bolded that you're planning on having read or highlighted in some way so that there's not a lot of confusion, because I think that's one thing I've seen lately where an actor won't know if the stage direction's being read, and then it gets very muddy the moment while two people try and talk at once. So. Okay.
I wanted to piggyback on what Andy was saying is the advantage of having a director, if you have in a 6-character piece, is the director can keep an eye on everybody's style and try to keep everybody consistent. So we've heard a little differences of opinion about how big or how small you have to go in a virtual presentation. The director will make sure that everybody's at least in the same place. So, and the director needs to be aware of that. Isn't a director helpful in framing, in helping you get into the frame so that you know where you should be in the frame? A lot of this conversation started off with a kind of a do-it-yourself kind of thing. Everybody's talking about what you're doing it on your own, but you have a director in some of these situations, and you have a producer. I have a producer, Jim Kierstead, likes to take care of all of the tech stuff himself. He likes to have an eye on all the tech stuff. So it's not always going to be you, depending on your own instincts. Although Sharlene's given you great ideas on how to frame yourself and how to keep an eye on yourself and direct yourself. Isn't it?
Right. Yeah.
Have a director?
Yeah, the director, I think also with Zoom, and I think everyone's going to agree, it helps with the pacing that the actors aren't always aware of, because there's that lag time with Zoom. And so I had a director do a farce, and we really had to pay attention to the pacing and the lag time of Zoom, because the farce doesn't work when there's this crazy lag time. So we basically we were directed to try to even start the line as sooner than that, let it not let there be space in between.
Yeah, pick up cues before you even think you should.
Correct. And I think that's really helpful. That, Bob, you said it beautifully and perfectly. And I think that's helping with the director, helping with that. And then when Rhonda and I did I saw Labyrinth Theaters, 121st Street, and they did a beautiful job of passing things and making it more alive. And unfortunately that was only a one-time thing, and you can't see it again. And I think Inger saw it because she's shaking her head, and they did a beautiful job. So you do need that third eye. And then the actors can help too, because it's a much more collaborative effort when you're on Zoom than when you're on stage. And Jeffrey Siegel brought up a really great point, that we're not always going to be in quarantine. So I wouldn't worry so much about worrying about the writer. The writer should just write whatever they want to write, because whatever it happens, it's going to come to live on Zoom, and then it's going to come alive on stage. So I think, just keep writing and doing the beautiful work that you're doing, and we'll be, doing this on stage someday. So I, don't want people to be censoring their work because of Zoom.
I would qualify that by saying, if you're going to write something for a Zoom presentation, for virtual presentation, you may want to think of it.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm thinking beyond Zoom. But if you doing a Zoom play, then obviously you have Zoom. You have to keep all that in mind. But again, what I said earlier, and Rhonda, I know, was going like this. It's a creative, can be a very fun and creative thing, and using whatever you can in your toolbox at home.
Structure is very useful for writers. I mean, I love structure. I think like a play, you can think of a play as being a sonnet, and you can think of a virtual presentation as being a haiku. So you have to think very small, and you have to think within that box, within that frame. I think you have to be able to have a vision that, as a writer, if I were to write something for Zoom, I would really want to think very deeply in terms of what would best be communicated in this kind of presentation. And I talked about this last week as well. I think that thematically, you don't have to be limited, but certainly a play about isolation, or a play about separation, or a play about something that is inherent in the medium that you're dealing with would probably work well as a guess. David Lamberton. David?
Okay, yep, there it is. Me put my face back up there too.
There you are. You put your face up in your...
I'm sorry?
Okay, there you go.
Yes. Just a couple of quick things that tag on to what everybody else was saying, especially if you've got small spaces to work with. One of the links that I put up earlier, I just discovered last night. There's a green screen, or a gray, or a blue, depending on what you want, that actually attaches right to the back of your chair. It's got a Velcro strip and so forth, so you don't have to take up more space, all space. And you can get them in 42-inch, 50-inch, 60-inch sizes, round, and they just literally attaches to the back of your chair.
Yeah.
And then plus all these other things about high-res downloads for video, because then you can start combining those things. If you get a green screen, you can put a virtual screen up, and it won't, shadow ghost back and forth as you move.
Like I do.
And then I just put up also to tag on to what Sandy did, is Amazon has a lot of stuff that you can package together as green screen.
Oops, froze.
I'm done.
Okay. Ingrid, did you want to? You've joined us. Okay, you don't want. All right, Sharlene.
Sorry.
Sharlene has her hand up. No.
Oh yeah, I had it up a while ago. I forgot. What was it going to say? Oh yeah, I have a playwright friend, and I've done some of his readings, and he always wants to tone me down as far as props go, because ever since I started this, when I was in California, somebody would open the trunk of my car and they would say, "What is this mannequin's arm doing in there?" And I'd say, "I'm going to use it as a prop." Anyway, I have a lot of props. And finally, though, because of the Zoom thing, I can use them because it brings it. It's like, you get your little script and you think, okay, I have a book. I have this, I have that. And you put it on the little table next to you. And it really brings alive. I mean, that's what Valerie said. We're like little kids playing dress up or building a house with what we have that's available to us. And that's what I was going to say. But, that topic was way, way, way like 10 minutes ago. So
it's ever relevant.
Oh, okay.
Relevant. Did you want to? Okay, Rhonda has her hand up, and now Gloria.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something quickly in about sound, which is there are adjustments that you can make through Zoom to stop the sound cutting out. And I actually put them I made a PDF of them. And if you'd like, I can send them to you, Bob, and you can send them out to everyone. They're very simple in the Zoom settings. So, because Zoom is designed for speaking, where people would not be overlapping. And you can just change these settings and it's going to give you much more speaking latitude for your acting work.
Can I call?
Bob has disappeared. He's just an empty chair. I will also say the AirPods are, I think, amazing because you can move with them, and your sound is always with you. And if you have the option, if you're thinking about getting a pair, there are the regular ones, and then for $100 more, you can get the Pro version. I think don't get the Pro because it has even more noise canceling ability. And you want less noise canceling if you want to have other sound come in. So yeah, if you're somehow playing your sound by yourself, that is an option.
Gloria, did you?
Yeah, this isn't even the original question. Someone was talking about the Ethernet connection if you're in another room. I keep getting on my screen internet unstable, and I'm wondering if I should get that because I'm practically sitting on the damn router. It's right here. So I'm wondering if I should get that so that this doesn't happen.
Yes, it's only about $10, and I'm ordering it. Yes,
I think I actually have one hidden away somewhere. And the other, oh shoot, I got distracted by that. And Rhonda, you just answered that about the AirPods. I have asked this before, and I think it's an impossible question. If I'm just going to do a section of my show, I may not need it, but because of the nature of my show, and because it is about a hearing child in the deaf world, I have a large deaf audience. I have a large CODA, ASL, all of those people. Without an interpreter, I have lost a lot of that. And I don't think I can do that on Zoom because we're going to be two equal parts and the interpreter should be like this and I should be like this. Because on stage, I have my light, she has a lesser light. So it's, even though we're equal, there's a difference, but I just feel like on Zoom, we're just going to be two big heads.
So I'm keeping first, and then we don't have to end at 6 o'clock, but a lot of people may be leaving. Before everybody leaves, I want to just make my usual now weekly plea. Everything that we do now is free. We're offering everything for free. We are losing a lot of our money because we can't do live programming, we can't charge for things. So if you find value in what we're doing and if you enjoy the community gathering, please consider going online to trueonline.org, www.trueonline.org. Sandy, maybe you could type that in for me. And consider making a donation to us. Anything will help. It's just where we are right now. We don't have any money coming in. So I'm going to keep doing this as long as I can. So that's it. That's my plea to the room. Now we can go back to the conversation. And I see, Andy, do you still have your hand raised?
I didn't get. Oh, I guess there's no answer to that then, because I did ask a question, but I don't think there's an answer to it.
You know what? I think there is, Gloria, because and I would check out the Marsh stream, because what you can do is, and the Marsh stream, the Marsh in San Francisco, where some of us have performed, what I notice is that you can be large on the Zoom screen and then make sure that everyone pins you and then has a little side person. So your person could be on the side. You know how, and I think that might help you. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
See, I don't know how you can control the size of the frame. I don't know if you'll have to find some platform that does that. Zoom doesn't do it. So there might be a platform that does let you
StreamYard.
Frame.
StreamYard does it.
StreamYard?
Yeah.
Okay, it's Emma, right?
Yes.
Okay, Emma's suggesting to look into StreamYard.
Yeah, the thing about StreamYard, you can have up to 10 screens, which is enough for most theater that we're Zooming right now.
Yeah, but
you have to pay for it to record. But you can, the benefit is it streams on multiple platforms simultaneously.
So, but Emma, what she's saying is she wants the frames to be different sizes.
Yeah, so different sizes? Yeah.
That's all I need. I don't think I need StreamYard. I think we can, from what Valerie and Rhonda are saying, I'm going to talk to the Marsh and just go a little further with my...
Valerie, your hand is still raised. Did you want to say some parting words?
Well, I wanted to, I wasn't clear, and the input's been great on how the actors are looking at the script, and do you look at the other actors, or are you just listening and looking at the green light? I wasn't clear, but with what Sharlene and I think Inger were saying, and also Ms. Friedman. So yeah, so
I look at you now. Do you think I'm looking at you now, Valerie?
I totally think you're looking at me.
Because I am, and that's what I do when I read. You know, and I glance down. I have my computer on a little cushion. And also the great thing about utilizing a laptop to read from, you get some light. That acts as another source of light, you know, underneath you.
Because I look at the green and I have you in my peripheral vision and listen to you, but I keep looking at the green light and I actually don't look at the other actor. And that's why I'm curious to see what other people are doing and what they feel, because I'm not looking at you, Sharlene, but you're in my peripheral vision and I can hear you, but I'm not necessarily looking at you right now as if we were in a play together. So
well, maybe
it's interesting.
Because you're using a laptop and I'm using a phone. So
right, and I'm using a laptop.
Looking straight at you, and it makes me feel more like I'm really having a conversation with a person.
You know? Gotcha. Yeah, and I'm on a laptop. So yeah, and thank you for clarifying that.
A director will help you with that. It will help you to direct your focus in the right place. That's what a director is doing.
Right, because I thought with the farce I did, it was so fast. I didn't have time. If I looked at you, I would be missing the line. So I guess maybe it depends on the script and there's no black or white on this. It's, you know, it's depends on the play, I guess. That's what I'm thinking.
So we're gonna start wrapping up. Any words of wisdom to leave us with?
I think play and just remember it's theater. And
Right.
as Emma Goldman Sherman says, we can go anywhere anywhere in our audience's minds. So we keep appealing to that and do our work.
And I would say rehearse. Don't take shortcuts just because this is Zoom. All rules apply. You don't do a reading without rehearsing and putting a lot of hours in. So something is well polished, you don't realize how many hours goes into it. So rehearse.
Andy, any parting words from you? Or Julie?
Hello. Yes, I just want to say that with all we talked about, I think Valerie's attitude is the right one. Have a ton of fun with all
Yes.
Because you're experimenting, you're doing new things, and you're trying new things, and you're learning about lighting and editing. It's a ton of fun. Let's not lose perspective.
Well, it all depends on what your goal is from this. A writer's goal might be a little different from yours. Director's goal might be a little bit different from yours as well. For some of us, this is an opportunity. It's the only thing we have right now is a sales tool to develop our work and to get it in front of the right people, and hopefully have somebody interested in moving it into a live performance once we can all get into a theater together. So thank you all for being with us.
Thank you, Bob. This is great.
Yeah. Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you.